I'm Grant Wiley from Worthington Publishing, here to welcome you to episode 6 in Grant's Game Room. Today we're going to be reviewing a two-time print of Worthington Games at the time. That is Hearts and Minds on the Vietnam War. And I'm doing this because of the PBS special by Ken Burns that's currently airing on, well, right now for the next 6 nights. Just so you know, this game is being reprinted into a 3rd edition, and that will be done by Compass Games. I believe they're planning on a early to mid 2018 printing of this, so that'll be something to look forward to and give you another reason to maybe check out the game. But I'm going to be reviewing the 2nd edition of this. First, a little bit of housekeeping. Guys, if you're liking what we're doing and you want to see more of these, please click below on subscribe and the notification button, and you'll be notified whenever I do videos. Normally we do them on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I had a little bit of an editing problem yesterday. That's why today, Thursday, we've got one. But we will be back tomorrow with another Vietnam update. I'm going to do a little bit of a surprise game, a golden oldie for me, and see what y'all think about that one. Also, if you're watching this, until October 9th, currently on Kickstarter, Hold Fast Tunisia is available. That's volume 6 in our Hold Fast series. This covers the World War II campaign in Tunisia between Patton, Monty, and Rommel, who eventually gets replaced. But it goes from there, and we'll be doing Sicily next. Again, today we're going to be reviewing the 2nd edition of Hearts and Minds by Worthington Games. We did this on Kickstarter, and it did fairly well. It's a very popular game, and if you want to ask me, it's probably the best game done on the topic of World War II. On Vietnam, the game was designed by John Paninsky, who is a Vietnam veteran, and was developed by Stan Helinski. And the teamwork here was like peanut butter and chocolate. I mean, this is good stuff. So we're going to get into the components, and then I'll show you a little bit of gameplay. And here we go. Get a good, solid, nice, standard box, bookshelf size, 11.5 by 9, 11.5 by 8.5. Little bit of the game components on the back. Our graphic artist, Sean, at the time, took iconic pictures from the Vietnam era and put them on the box. Really cool looking box. Inside the box, if you have the 1st or 2nd edition, you're going to get 3 card decks. A red deck, which I believe has 27, a blue deck, which has 27, and a black deck that has 26. During gameplay, you take each of the decks, shuffle them separately, the red deck and the blue deck. You then take the black deck and shuffle them, and then put half in each of the red and blue deck. And that's your play deck for the game. Blue deck, obviously, the U.S. Forces, ARVN, South Vietnamese, Republic of Korea, International Forces. And the red deck, the NVA, Viet Cong, Communist Forces. You get a sheet and a half of counters. There's 2 sides to these. The lighter colored is untried units. The darker color is tried units, experienced units. As units go through combat, they flip from one side to the other. You have counters here for the U.S. Forces, International Forces, Republic of Korea Forces, ARVN, North Vietnamese Regular Army, the Viet Cong, who are very cool in the game, how they appear. You also have armies for Laos and Cambodia, as well as the communist forces there. You have assets of armor, air, and naval force for the U.S. forces. Inside there is a 16-page full-color rulebook with explanations starting on the 1st page. Lots of good graphics, explanations of the cards. Kind of wordy, but it's not overwhelming wordy. As a matter of fact, during the 1st episode of the Vietnam, as soon as I got done, I read the entire rule set in 20 minutes. I hadn't played it in a while, and you know, you see a TV documentary, you want to play the game. Good full color graphics, explanations on combat, movement, and card play here. And a little bit of detail about the units. Now the real cool feature is the playbook. There's 9 different scenarios. You can start the war in just about any year from 1965 to 1972 and play it to conclusion. Gives you your start and setups, how you mix your cards. And then starting on page 7, you get a little bit of explanation of the cards. And then the last 2 pages during the Kickstarter campaign, we allowed folks to pledge and make dedications to family members or friends who had fought in the Vietnam War. And we ended up with almost 2.5 pages full of dedications. In volume 1, or first edition of the game, and you get a couple dice. In the first edition of the game, you got a cardstock map. In the second edition, we got rid of some of the charts and extra stuff, and we made a large map, much larger map, with the charts on the board. Now I'm holding this a little funky here, but I wanted you to be able to see it. Laos and Cambodia are over here on the, I don't even know what side that would be, but they're in the brown. South Vietnam, North Vietnam, or South Vietnam is in the green, and then North Vietnam is up to the north in the red. All your pertinent charts and information for play are on the game board, which makes this very good. So that's that on that. I'm sure Compass Games is going to be doing on their 3rd edition, really upgrading the components. And from what I've read, John is, and I think Bill Morgul or somebody is developing it, and they're going to be putting in a solitaire engine. So I'm going to go through a little bit of gameplay. I'm going to come around to the other side of the camera and just let you know how to show you a couple things about gameplay. Here we go. Okay, we're going to get into the board just briefly here because it's pretty self-explanatory. This is an area movement game. You can see the area is broken up by white lines. The yellow lines denote combat zones for the Vietnam War. You see Zone 2 in yellow there. That's this central area of Vietnam. You can see fire bases in the blue. The black mountains there represent areas where special tribes were during the Vietnam War. Montagnards, I think they were called. They were staunchly anti-communist. But it's an area movement game. So we're going to just highlight down here into the Mekong Delta, Zone 4. Now we're going to look at the combat units briefly. Here you can see some American and North Vietnamese units. Strength is 2, movement 4. You can look at the counter real easy and tell what it is. Now these are the darker colored units, the experienced units. There's some to the left, veteran U.S. forces. You see they move a little bit quicker. Mainly motorized forces. Got to remember we had Jeeps and a lot more mobile army than the North Vietnamese, who traveled by foot a lot. On the right before you see the bombers and the SRP marker, you can see the ROC units, Republic of Korea. They were especially tough fighters. And here is the backside of units. These are the backside of the Laotians and Cambodians. You can see their strength is 1-4. That's standard, even in the U.S. and ARVN and North Vietnamese armies. Their strength is less. Number of markers. I'm not trying to make you sick here. We're going to zoom out. The Viet Cong forces, and they are typical 1-1. They only move 1 province a turn. Now, how you activate units for movement. Let me get some of these cards in here because this is a highlighted game. The black deck. As I said, you shuffle half the black deck and put it into the red and blue deck. So that'll give you 40 cards aside to play the game. Now the cards, and I may have to print up pictures of these. Ah, there we go, the Tet Offensive. You see in the top right corner the number 3. That's how many resource points that card is worth. You can spend most cards to perform actions. So for one action, I can activate an area to move units from or to fight combat. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and see if that brings in the focus. No. Okay. Same thing here. Now some cards, however, cost action. So this card, Commando Hunt, is a 4... Man, that's horrible. A 4 action point card. But it costs 4 RPs to play this card for the event. So you can play the event and the resource points, but to play the event on some of these cards, it costs you the resource points. Now, you can bank resource points. If you want to, you got to play a card. You have 5 in your hand for the year. And if I wanted to play this card, I could either spend it for 4 actions to move, activate units in areas to attack or move, or I could spend the 4 RP to do this event, which Commando Hunt is bomber missions may target Laotian border provinces. More than one bomber may bomb a province each turn, and red bonus RPs are reduced. And that's for the rest of the game. You have special... Oh, that's horrible. Again. Tet Offensive. You have campaign cards that you can pick each year. Easter Offensive. Mekong Delta, you can see that costs 3 SR. You play for 3 SRPs instead of 1 for actions this turn, provided you spend them all in Zone 4. So if I were to play this card, I would get an extra action, and this card costs nothing, but if I spent all of my actions in Zone 4 down here in the Mekong Delta region, I would get 1 bonus resource point to activate my units. And then for Zone 4 battles, you roll 2 dice and use the best roll. That's only for this turn. Now, the goal in this game is there is a track called the Hawk and Dove marker. And it starts on the Hawk side, and as the North Vietnamese player, you're trying to drive it to the Dove side, while as the Allied player, you're trying to keep it on the Hawk side to keep the war going. There's events that occur during the game, such as the collapse of the South Vietnamese government, in which case the Allied player has to spend bonus resource points to prop up the government. The same thing can happen if you run short of resource points to play one of the cards that require resource point play. You can use banked RPs to activate or go ahead and perform the actions you want. So it's really a great game. Stan and John spent a lot of time, particularly Stan, I gotta give Stan a lot of credit here, of bringing in the lingo for the war onto the cards. I feel like I'm fixing to die. Mad Minute, which I think just laying down some fire. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Hanoi Hilton. We got to get out of this place. Whispering Death. Just a lot of good lingo. Stan's currently working on finished a game on Cowboy and Indian Western fights at the man-to-man level, and he brought in a lot of lingo there, although his name is Clint Destry, not Stan Helinski there. Sorry. So that's just a brief overview of gameplay. Like I said, you get 5 cards each turn. One of those can be a campaign card. You alternate playing the cards for the events and resource points. It's very chaotic. As the South Vietnamese or North Vietnamese player, you're trying to put your flags into the South Vietnamese areas. As the Allied player, you're trying to prevent deaths of your units while driving up the body count on the enemy. We'll zoom in here because body count, as we all know from watching the Vietnam War series, became the cry of the U.S. military and the Hawks during the war. That's how they evaluated how we were doing. Go around to the other side of the camera and we'll talk about a conclusion here. Guys, that's about it for today. If you get a chance and you want to pick up a copy of this, unfortunately we had printer problems. Our printer that we were doing this game with at the time was going out of business due to family situation. So we were supposed to get a print run of 1,000. We actually got less than 500 of these. So if you own a copy, it's fairly collectible just for that fact. There's less than 500 copies of this floating around. Like I said, Compass Games will be doing an update. Guys, there's a shout out to you. I hope you do a great job with it. Send me a free game, I hope. But they should be doing that early to mid 2018. I believe Stan's bowed out of that just because he's got other stuff going on. John's working with an outside developer on that, and they've come up with a bit of a solitaire system for it. Go below, click like, subscribe if you enjoyed this. If you didn't, click the thumbs down button. But please, as always, let us know what you think, what you'd like to see reviewed. If you're a game company and like us to review your games, please contact me at worthingtonpublishing@gmail.com. And as always, happy gaming.